May 18th, 1980, Mount St. Helens eruption. Hard to believe it's been 45 years. I was 7, and of course, in school during the week, we had kind of been discussing the lead up to the eruption, not knowing when it was going to erupt. And all of us kids thought Harry Truman was quite the character. My dad was kind of like, the old fool won't leave, but we were all like, oh no, he's cool. So I remember the morning on May 18th. We got up kind of early because my mom wanted to go out to my grandma's, because my grandpa and the guys were all working out in the fields because it was like salad onion season and radishes and asparagus. And so we went out to visit my grandma and keep her company. And we went to leave, and my mom noticed that our Irish setter was just acting unsettled. He was kind of pacing back and forth, and I was like, oh, there's probably like a squirrel out there or something. Like, I'm 7. And she's like, no, something's not right. She's like, listen. And I was like, what? She's like, there's no birds. She was like, it's dead quiet. Nothing's chirping. Like the doves weren't cooing, the sparrows, and I'm just thinking, oh, you're just being overreactionary, mom, that and that. So we get in the car and we're driving to go to my grandma's, and we just felt like this jolt. And I'm thinking earthquake. And my mom's like, turn the radio on. And sure enough, they break in that the mountain had erupted. And the rest of the day was just kind of crazy. We get out to my grandma's, and relatives are calling off the hook asking if everybody's okay because the news reports were making it sound like the state had been blown off the map. Which wasn't true at all, but people didn't know. And then my dad called and he's like, you guys need to get home because there's like an ash cloud. And he had been called up to work because he worked for the Corps of Engineers, and they didn't know if they were going to need his district to go help with the flooding that was happening from the mud flows and the blast and everything. But he's like, you guys need to get home because that ash can, damage the car, blah, blah, blah. So we get home, and we're in southeastern Washington. We watched that ash cloud bypass our area. It went northeast right past us. So my uncle called from Pullman, and it was pitch black up there in the middle of the afternoon. And it was finals week that next week up there. Fun fact, that's the fastest that the grocery stores in Pullman ever sold out of booze. Because you couldn't really drive anywhere. You don't want to ruin the engines on your car, and you didn't want to be outside for prolonged periods. So the kids went and bought booze. And my uncle went and scooped up ash into little jars and brought us all back Mount St. Helens ash. I still have that jar packed up over at my parents' house. So that was really cool. I brought it to school for show and tell because I was in the 2nd grade. So that next day, getting on the school bus, that's all everybody was talking about was Mount St. Helens. We got to school. All these kids in my class, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, wanting to be volcano, geologists, volcanologists, etc. So it was pretty cool. And it got a lot of us interested in geology. And I even took geology classes in college because that did strike an interest. And just seeing the destruction of it, it was such a beautiful mountain. And then that blast and the destruction, it leaves you in awe of nature. And I always thought Mount St. Helens was the prettiest of the 4 Washington large mountains. She just had that perfect shape. And there was a spot that was always my favorite as a kid traveling back and forth between Seattle. And you'd come back down into the Yakima Valley near Sela Creek, and there would be a sign, and it would say Mount Adams, Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier off in the distance. You could see all 3 on a clear day. Just beautiful. And after she blew her top, they had to change the sign. Just Adams and Rainier now because you can't see her from there. And it really made me sad, but it's just Mother Nature's undefeated. She's beautiful and she's powerful. And it was quite something to say, I remember where I was on May 18th, 1980.